All right. So I've been approached by many parishioners from my church who've been asking me about this viral movie, K-pop Demon Hunters, and asking if it's safe and good for their children to watch. Now, different people have different opinions. Some families have made certain choices that contradict what other people think. Now, I just thought I'd give you my theological evaluation and reflection. So, first, I'm going to share with you some of the key themes, and I want you to just keep them in mind. And for those of you who are skeptics, perhaps this is something that you can consider having discussion with your children. I think that through these discussions, you may actually find that the movie can be enjoyable. Because to be quite honest, at first, I was a skeptic too. And when it's funny, you have all these like shorts where you have these skeptic dads, and all of a sudden they're like dancing to the music. I'm not one of those. I'm not going to dance. But I will say, I think if you don't take the whole scenario literally, right, of the main character Rumi being half demon, but you take it figuratively, it can actually be a really good synopsis of humanity in light of the spiritual warfare, right? And so you have Rumi, who really has this half demon in her identity, but we can take that as almost like original sin. And so we see that we have a certain fallen nature. And in this nature, there are certain secrets about us, certain sins that we've committed that we are very ashamed of. And God then helps to direct light on this, right, through his revelation to help us come to an inner healing. And in other words, to come to reconciliation with him. And in the Catholic Church, in our theology, we would point to the sacrament of reconciliation. So through confession, by opening your heart and shedding that light, God comes in and he really frees you. And how prime it is when you see the very final moment in which Rumi has her performance and she has the support of her two sisters, right? This is a very powerful moment. Mira and Joey, they combine forces with her in a sense, and they protect the, oh shoot, what's it called? I forget the name. There's like this special like orb like uh let me look it up real quick. K-pop Demon Hunters protect the it's like the honeymoon honeymon the moon the Han moon. What's a Han moon? It's crazy. But anyway, okay, so the point being, yes, it is this question of how do we embrace our identity? How do we recognize that we belong to God, that we are children of the light, not of the darkness? I think a lot of people have certain struggles with this, which keep them from coming to the church, right? Because they see in themselves a certain shame, and there is this skepticism, this doubt that God can actually redeem them in his mercy. And a lot of this then keeps people from making that final leap of faith. Rumi overcomes that shame. She sees the task at hand and that she has to have some serious fortitude, some serious courage, not to be afraid to step out in front of her entire audience with all the pressure of what this can mean of being judged. And she's willing to reveal the truth, which most people would cringe and run and hide in a corner and cry for the rest of their lives. But she says, nope, I'm embracing this. And so be it. Because if this is what it takes to defeat these demons, I have to do it. And she does it. And that's beautiful, right? And that's the power of reconciliation, my friends. And so I think in that light, this could be a really good conversation starter for the children, even to question them, I mean, it's embarrassing. Yeah, don't tell the parents, but go to the priest and begin again. It's an opportunity for them to really reflect on themselves and to consider what is it that's keeping them from drawing closer to God and being truly liberated from whatever sin is having enchained them. So that's one thing. The second theme is the beauty of friendship, right? And so this is so good because I think teenagers are very self-conscious, right? They're very self-aware, and they don't want to do anything that's going to draw judgment upon them, especially from their friends. Because friends, I think during your teenage years, mean more than family, right? It's terrible, but it's true. And so in this movie, it's beautiful to see the dynamics between Rumi and both Mira and Zoe. But then you see how uh, ashamed she is. There's no way she thinks to herself, there's no way she'll be accepted by Mira and Zoe. But the latter is true, which we see at the very end. But it's amazing how the devil can use that shame, and really drive a wedge and really separate someone from the people who love them, right? And we see this so often in teenage culture. And, especially about being accepted for who they are, whatever identity they want to identify as. And it's not always about, your gender, but with so many other things. But to be accepted fully, right, requires that vulnerability. And this is exactly tied to being empowered by love. And the love looks beyond all the shortcomings of the other person, because love is loving the person, not the behavior, right? And I think in the Catholic Church, that's one of our key principles. And Jesus tells us, love your enemies. Now, I think if you get short-sighted in this movie, you can get confused with the idea of loving demons, right? You can't love demons, which is the one thing where I could see, if someone gets very meticulous with the theology, they say, well, Father, she's a half demon, right? But that's what I'm saying. Don't get caught up, right? Don't get caught up in those details of, let's not get scrupulous, but to see the narrative, again, through the symbolic nature, right? And so I think in that sense, it's quite beautiful, because both Mira and Mira and Zoe, they show you what true friendship means, this true accompaniment, that true friendship is not about judging the other person by their actions, but is actually loving them regardless of even their shortcomings, even if it's directed against you, right? To have mercy, forgive, and begin again. And it's impressive. I think sometimes ideology, politics, all these different things can get in the way, especially today, from true friends persevering. But what's beautiful in this movie is there is a key lesson here that I think Gen Zers, millennials, all of us can really learn from. That it doesn't matter what certain ideologies someone may have, but when you have real love for the person and you try to draw them to the truth, that's what's beautiful. And those friendships are worth protecting. And so those friends who drew and really embraced the protagonist, Rumi, they really embraced Rumi in her full identity. And in the end, you see the spectacular show. And you see how they not only were able to save the world because they sealed the honeymoon, but also that they were able to show all the audience the power of and the dynamic of friendship. And then also, this is kind of a, some people might see this as a stretch, but it's the power of music, right? The kids at my church are obsessed. I can't tell you how many times they've seen Golden, and it's a little annoying, but it's okay. I still love them. But the reality is, music has a power to gravitate. And in the church, we use music for the liturgy to inspire and to gravitate people towards God. And so we use music that has, a certain power. And when it's chanted to our Lord, there's a real grace. In this movie, they use this power that is wielded by these demons, right? You have the anarchists, or you have this demon boy band, the Soulja, I forget what their names are. It's like Soulja Boy. I don't know, whatever the boy band's name is. And they're using their mystical powers through their music to draw the audience away from God. And this is actually very true. And I actually learned this from several exorcists about the power of cursed music and the implications that that can have of making people draw towards certain vices. It can even be drawing people towards lust, drawing people towards greed, and even seeking vainglory. And these are all true when you look at music today in the music industry. But on the opposite hand, when there's wholesome music, right? Sacred music that draws and elevates the soul to the things of heaven. Now, this is defending salvation. And that's what we really need in this day and age. It's no wonder that we have a real return to tradition and so many people wanting to really see the good, the authentic good that the liturgy really has always had for the thousands of years. That the liturgy has been, in place. Next is this understanding when you enter into Rumi's heart and you walk with her through her adventure. The battles she faces with temptation, right? And even with vanity. And it's so good because they kind of help you understand what goes through the life of not just K-pop idols, but influencers, right? And understanding that it's not all just glory, right? There's a lot of difficulty and pressure, self-knowledge that's really hard to not only comprehend, but to accept. And you see that she has, in her own ways, these false idols. And the movie articulates that quite beautifully, right? And these idols prevent her from seeing her true self. And, even the way that she and the other two girls fanboy for the boy band, right? I mean, it's it's pretty funny to say the least, but it's real. And those demon boys, they are trying to lure them with their passions, right? The lower faculties, so to speak. And that's actually a real good analysis of K-pop today. I mean, you have a lot of these really famous bands. You have Blackpink, or you have EXO, and you have, shoot, I don't know all the band names, but bear with me here. Anyway, yeah, these different bands, Korean fan K-pop groups, and what's real is that these groups use or they sell vanity, right? And it's a very powerful tool. Or they lure you with lust, which is also a very powerful tool. And I think we have to be very sober about this. I mean, even parents have to look at it and say, is this what's going to inspire my child to draw closer to God? Is this going to inspire my child to become a wholesome spouse, wholesome person in life? And obviously, I mean, we can't be serious 24/7. And, sometimes we have to have good moments of laughing at ourselves and just enjoying fun music. But at the same time, yeah, to be just very careful about lyrics, very careful about rhythm. Some beats are very sexual in nature. But K-pop hunters, I found that the songs are very reasonable. I think theologically they're reasonable, and they help people to discern, right? And really it draws your attention to what's important in life. So I thought that that was really good. Again, it focuses on this theme of brokenness and redemption, right? In the identity, like, who am I? And I think that's something that so many Gen Zers relate with today. We live in this very fast-paced world. I mean, you see how fast-paced our lives are, and they're just wanting so badly to go home and eat ramen and lay on the couch, right? Like, that's their way of that's heaven to them, decompressing and just vegging, right? Now, if you look at that scenario, and then you also look at the reality of our culture today, and all the kids are trying to be fed different marketing skills, trying to zap their attention. social media zapping attention, everyone trying to zap that attention, how desperate they're looking for silence and to just veg, right? And I would say in our tradition, the best way of doing that is just vegging in front of Jesus. It's called mental prayer, right? So you go in front of Jesus in the church, in the tabernacle, and he's there waiting for us. And you can literally hang out with him. And he helps us to decompress, to see all those issues in our lives and see where we're in need of that redemption. He's able to point it out to us so that our consciences, it weighs heavy. And then before we know it, we know that we have to do something to reveal the truth, to be truly set free. So, yeah, I think for those of you who are skeptics who didn't give this movie a shot, if you want to, I say it's safe to give a shot. Just don't get too caught up in the idea that the protagonist is half demon. Obviously, that's impossible. No one can have relations with a demon to the point of having a child. But let it speak to you allegorically, realizing that everyone does struggle with demons, that if you're not careful can overwhelm your life and can even like take over. Realizing that God, who created us, loves us into being. That said, he is the winner, right? And we have to join him on the winning half. Jesus in his salvation, not only in the eyes of K-pop demon hunters, sealed the monsoon of salvation once and for all, but he is the truth. And so any child who's struggling to know their identity is such a good conversation starter, right? And I think parents who have a hard time relating to their children and understanding why their children might be, kind of like closing in and not being vulnerable with their parents. I think also through this movie, if the parents struggle to have conversations with their children to be vulnerable, like this would be a really good way to get the ball rolling. All right, I think that's basically it. For those of you who haven't watched the movie, good luck. Parents who have, if your kids want to watch it again, with temperance, but maybe give it a second shot. And enjoy. Don't let the music draw you in too much. Till next time.